This is Gemara and Succah, Daf of Av. All the learning for this month, the month of Av, has been generously sponsored by Eastern Union, Lezei Chanishma, Sichas Shagav, and Avram Yehuda, as well as Rachel Bas Shamshanar and Tzvi. The learning of the entire Chabura, which Baruch Hashem we keep on saying, but it keeps on growing. Welcome to all the new listeners. It should be a tremendous chos for their neshama. Of course, all our chinim men bevegel chaim besar shem sim reis Israel baskanandi the basim chayser yisol mendel aliyah the paratim shalei shom bazamah shevig shechan shmo bentil din mechaviz mechaviz bezil brachos to Musa adin enu meshin min asiv bevegel ruah mechil shun zelhu min achamandel Rivka bas Bashava Naftali Ziv Mechlester V'say Shar Chalei so also Shloshel Chvatlei Bas Ita and Yisrael Chaim ben Devaira. We pick it up on the bottom of Hey Amid Beis. We are 7 lines on the bottom. We are about to embark on a new and lengthy discussion of the Gemara, as the Gemara says. Shiurim Daraisanenu. We just concluded yesterday that according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, we said 7 lines on the bottom. Shiurim Chatzitzin U'Machitzin Allah Moshe Misinai. That the way that Rabbi Yehuda knows that the minimum height of a sukkah is 10 tvachim. Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. The reason was Rav Meir learned it out from elsewhere. He learned it out from the Aron, from the Kapayres. That was 10 tvachim, from the Keruvim, as we saw so beautifully yesterday. Their wings, seichachin, schach, seichin b'kanfeim, right above their heads. But that was only worked with Rav Meir that says that an amma is an amma of Beinanis, a 6 tefach amma, and that's how the math will work out. They're going to have a 10 tefach Aron with the Kapayres, a 10 tefach Kruvim, 20 tvachim, which is a third of the 60 tvachim of the height of the Mishkan. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the amais of the kelim are 5 tvachim, we ran into an issue. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's going to be 11 and a half amais. And we know that the minimum height of a sukkah is 10 amais. So the Gemara, 10 tvachim. So therefore the Gemara concluded yesterday that shiurin, chatzit, and machitzin are Allah l'Moshe Misinai. A big chunk, perhaps even the majority of today's discussion, is going to be going to those 3 statements. The din of shiurim, din of a chatzitza, the din of a machitza, how, where, and how they're Allah l'Moshe Misinai. So we start off and says the Gemara, Shiurim daraisanenu. You just told me that all shiurim are learned at Allah l'Moshe Misinai. Ask the Gemara, that's not true. It's a din daraisa. The Chsev, as the Torah teaches us. Eretz, we're 5 lines to the man. Eretz chitos erev gefentina rimoin eretz ziz shemunu dvash. The Gemara now is going to go one by one, explaining each and every word in the pasuk, and if this sounds familiar, that's a beautiful thing, because this was the Gemara in Eruvin, Daf Dalid, sound like ages ago, back in the Eruvin days, as we started Eruvin, now we're on Succah Hamid Beis. Now the Gemara is going to go through almost the exact same discussion. Says the Gemara, the pasuk teaches us that all different shiurim are a din daraisa. Let's get to it. This entire pasuk is coming to teach us dinim of shiurim, of sizes, of measurements. Chita, wheat. What's the measurement of chita? Lepeitza menuga, for someone who walks into a house that is afflicted with saras. The Tananas we learned in the Mishnah. Hanechnas beitza menuga. Someone who enters into a house with saras, v'kilav al ksifav, and his kelim and his clothing is on his shoulders, he's wearing his clothing, v'sandalov, and his shoes, v'tabata biyadav, and he's wearing his shoes, and he's wearing his ring, he's wearing all his clothing, then the halacha is, hu behein tamei miyad. He and his clothing are tamei right away. The moment he walks into the house of Tsaras, the tumah permeates in the air, and he and everything that he is wearing automatically becomes tamei. We turn over to Vav Amud Aleph. Says the Gemara, that's if he was holding the clothing. But excuse me, I said the exact opposite. The first case is he's holding, it's al ksifav, he's holding it on his shoulders. He's carrying the clothing, he's carrying the ring in his hand, he's carrying something. The item he's carrying automatically right away becomes tummy. But what if he's lavush? He's wearing the keilav, his sandal of beraglov, and he's wearing the shoes on his feet. V'tabata betzvasav, and he's wearing the ring in his finger. Then there's a different halacha. Says the Gemara, who? Tamei miyad. He's tummy right away. Ve'hein, but the kelim, the clothing that he's wearing, the shoes on his feet, the ring in his finger. Ve'hein tiyar and they are tar ad. This is the shear that we're looking for, the measurement. Sheyishe b'chdei achilas pras. The amount of time he has to wait in the house to eat a loaf of bread. Pas chitin, half a loaf of wheat bread, v'loi pas oirin, and not barley bread. And how do you have to eat it? Meisav, reclining by chavliftam, and eating it with a relish. So when the pasuk says eretz chita, when it says wheat in the pasuk, it's teaching us the din of the shear, of the measurement, of the amount of time you have to wait in a beis hamenuga, a house that is afflicted with saras, while wearing your clothing, wearing your ring, wearing your shoes. How much time you have to be there, the amount of time to eat a half a loaf of wheat bread. So that's why the pasuk spells out chita, wheat, a din daraisa. We learned out from the pasuk. Number 2, sa'ira, barley. Where do we learn out from there? The Tanakh we learned in the Mishnah. 5 lines down, Vav Amid Aleph. Etzem kisayra. If there are human bone fragments, there's bones, of course, are tame. There's a fragment of a bone the size of a sa'ira, the size of a barley, metame b'mago b'masa. It's metame by touching it and carrying it. Ina metame ba'ayel. But does not have a din of tumah oil, that if it's inside a house, the tumah will not permeate over the whole house, but if you pick it up or you touch it, it will become tameh. So the measurement of sa'ira, of barley, is the size of a piece of bone in order to transmit tumah. Number 3, the pasuk says gefen, it says a vine. What do we need to know about a vine? Kidei revias yain l'nazir, the quantity of a revias yain for a nazir. Now, Perhaps I'm actually remembering that when we learned the Gemara in Eruvin, I think we flew through this and we did not explain this properly. So let's shtickle fix what we said back there. Rashi over here points out this is not referring to a liquid measurement of drinking the wine. Rather, this is referring to the solid measurement of eating a grape derivative. And the Gemara is teaching us that if there is displacement of a revius in wine, displacement meaning you have a cup of liquid and you take an item and you drop it into the cup, the displacement, the change in liquid difference, that is the quantity that's going to cause an issue with the nazir over here. So gefen revius yayin for a nazir. Now why wine? Because wine is thicker, more viscous, and therefore wine, before it overflows, in order to show the displacement, will hold on top of the cup a bit better. So therefore, if you're using displacement of wine and not displacement of water, it's going to be a larger quantity. So that is the third share we learn out from the pasuk is gefen. Number 4, te'ena is a fig. Shabbos, that's the shear. In Shabbos we saw the amount to carry on Shabbos is if you carry a dried fig. Number 5, rimoina pomegranate. Tonight we learned to the Mishnah. All kelim, all vessels, all items of a regular person, the shear that they're considered broken. When they're broken, that's when they're no longer going to be makabel tama. It's going to be when there's a hole in the keli, the size of a pomegranate, a sizable hole. That's how it's going to be considered a shevar kli, a broken kli, and no longer will have tuma onto it. And then the pasuk includes Eretz Zeis Shemen, a land of flowing with olive, divash. Says the Gemara, what type of honey? Date honey. Eretz shekol shiurah kizeisim. From there we learn out that all the shiurim, all the measurements go by a zayis and olive. Says Gemara, 1 second. We just listed 3 measurements that were not a zayis. There was a greigris, there was an adsem, there was a half a loaf of bread. So why are you telling me all the measurements are kazayis? Kol shurel doesn't make any sense. All the shurim are kazayis. That's not possible. They're all the ones that we just said. The majority of shurim, which we know very often, go by the kazayis. And the pasuk includes the vash. What is the honey? Reminiscent of about a month ago, we learned the final parak of Yuma, that how much you have to eat on Yom Kippur in order to be chayiv. The araisa is if you eat agasa, a large date on Yom Kippur. So after this incredible brisa, now we articulate our question according to what the Gemara ended off yesterday, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who said that mechitzin chatzitzin are halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and shiurim was the first one. Measurements was halacha l'Moshe Sinai, said Rabbi Yehuda. Really? Alma daraisaninu. Now what do we just prove? We just proved that all these measurements are a din daraisa. So how are you telling me the conclusion of yesterday, the bottom of Amid Beis, that shiurim measurements are halacha l'Moshe Sinai? Answers the Gemara of Tisbra. Is what you're saying logical? Shiurim miksivi. We just had a whole elaborate brisa explaining how the pasuk eretz chita dvash saira, how each word corresponds to a level of tama. But the pasuk didn't say the tama, did not say the measurement of tama. Elo, rather, Hilchasaninu. Really, it's Allah L'Moshe Sinai that we know what does the pasuk mean. V'kra asmachta ba'alma. Really, it's Allah L'Moshe Sinai, each of these measurements. The pasuk is an asmachta, somewhere almost to pin on the Allah L'Moshe Sinai. Says the Gemara, that takes care of Shi'urim, number 1. What was number 2? Number 2 was Chatzitzin. The halacha of a Chatzitza, halacha of when you go into mikvah, you can have anything blocking, interposing between your flesh and the waters of the mikvah. Says the Gemara, Chatzitza daraisa. The same question. You're telling me it's halach l'Moshe Sinai. No, it's not. It's a din daraisa. The pasuk says, "V'rachas says b'sar b'mayim. You should wash your flesh in water." Shlei davar chaytz b'no l'bein hamayim. There is nothing separate between you and the water. Says the Gemara. We see clearly it's halach l'Moshe Sinai. Why you tell? Excuse me. We see clearly it's a din daraisa, not halach l'Moshe Sinai. Answers the Gemara. Ki asi halachas l'sha'aroi l'sa'aroi. The halacha Moshe Sinai is teaching me halacha about the hair, a unique halacha about chatzitza in one's hair. Keder Rabba Bar Bar Chana, like Rabba Bar Chana teaches us 6 lines to the bottom. Dama Rabba Bar Chana, Nima Achas, you have a one strand of hair, kshura that is tied in a knot. If you take one strand, we'll show with, let's say, a string of a tzitzis. If you take one strand and you tie it in a knot, then it's actually not such a good example. I'll explain in a moment. But if you tie in a knot, that the water that could get stuck in that single strand of hair, that could be a chatzitza blocking. Shaloish, if you have 3 strands of hair that get tied in a knot, is not a good chatzitza. And that's the reason why this is not such a good example, because we know that tzitzit strings really are comprised of other individual strings. There's really 2 strings inside one. But either way, shtayim, if you have 2 strands in your idea, says Rabbi Chana, I don't know the halacha. So says the Gemara, this halacha l'Moshe Sinai, ki asay ilchas l'sa'iroi. The halacha l'Moshe Sinai that reviewed the Torah's end of yesterday was with regard to the din of the hair. This unique halacha that 1 hair in a knot is a chatzitza, 3 is not, and 2 we're not sure. Says the Gemara, really? Sa'iroi nami daraisa, asks the Gemara. Really, hair is also din daraisa neinu dechsev, as the pasuk says. 3 lines to the bottom, brachas es b'sara b'hamayim. It says brachas es b'sara b'hamayim. What's that es? What's that extra word coming to include? Es hatafel l'b'sara, that which is auxiliary to your flesh, which is what? To my new sa'iroi. Says the Gemara, no, again, what do we see? We see that the din of chatzitza is a din daraisa even on the hair. Answers the Gemara, ki asa yilchasa, what does the halacha l'Moshe Sinai teach us? Leched Rav Yitzchak. The Amar Rav Yitzchak, as Rav Yitzchak teaches us as we turn over to Vav Amid Beis. Devar Taira Midaraisa Ruba Yumakbil of Chaytit. Such an important halacha. Halacha of Rav Yitzchak, very Yisaitistic. Midaraisa, what is the chatzitza? Midaraisa. What invalidates a tefillah and a mikvah, says the Gemara? Rubai umakbid. If the majority of your body, the same halachas translate into tefillas kelim, which is also a din deraisa, by the way, that deraisa rubai umakbid of chaytitz. If the majority of your body is covered by something, umakbid alav, and you care about it, that's a chatzitza. But if you don't care about it, your whole body's covered in mud, but it doesn't bother you. The whole vessel is covered in schmutz and dirt and doesn't bother you. On a din daraisa, biblical level, the tefillah is a kosher tefillah, even though the majority of the item is covered and the water is not touching the keli, not touching the body. What's the reason? Because midaraisa, it's totally on kpeda. Do you care about it? So midaraisa v'she'enai makbid love enai chaytzitz. However, v'gazur al rubai she'enai makbid, they made a din derabanan. If the majority of the body is covered, even if you're not makbid, because you might make a mistake with the case where you are makbid. Okay, so if your majority of the body is covered, even if you're not makbid, midrabanan, it's a problem. And furthermore, they made a gzeira. If you have a miyat, if you have a minority, now we just went to the next level. If the majority of your body, you have a band-aid, you have something specific, something small, hamakbid, but you care about it. You have a bandit on your hand. You have dirt on your hand. You have tar on your hand. Of course you care about that. You're not going to walk out in the public. You're not going to go to a wedding with tar on your hand, tar on your face. So that's a din derabanan, it's a problem. Why? Because of the case of Raiv and Makbid. So they make a second gezerah. So 2 gezeras. Gezerah number 1. if you're makbid on roif, there number 2, if you're makbid on miyat, and again, what is called kpeda, what is called that you care about it, simply means it bothers you care about it. What's the exact parameters? Is it that you care, I said going to a wedding, is that you care you're going to go out to the streets, is obviously a point of contention. Now is not the moment to discuss. Something that you care about. Asks the Gemara 4 lines down, 1 second. Why don't we make a gezerah if it's a miyut that you don't care about? You have a band-aid on the bottom of your foot. You have some tar on your back that no one's going to see. Why don't we also make Xera on there? Answers the Gemara, Inami, or else, why don't we make Xera Misham Rubai She'enai Makbid? Because of that case of Einai Makbid? Answers the Gemara, the classic answer, He Gufa Xera. This itself is a decree. And want to make another decree, and therefore says the Gemara, you cannot. So the Gemara concludes, we were asking that the din of chatzitza is the din d'oraisa, says the Gemara. So what do we mean yesterday? That's halach l'Moshe Sinai. The Gemara now is explaining that mid'oraisa only a very small level is chatzitza. On top of that, we had din d'Rabbanan. That is the din of Rav Yitzchak. And I'll just point out, there's a very large machlokes. Rashi and Taisus over here, very famous Rachlaikas. We explained the Gemara more like Taisus. I kept on saying that in every one of the Dini D'Rabbanan, I was giving examples in your whole body. Rashi learns the entire Gemara, as you see in the top Rashi, Rubai, Roiv, Sairoi. Rashi's learning the din in the hair, but we're going to leave that for now. So number 1 that we learned today was Shiurin, that we learned that the pasuk is just almost a smachta. Number 2 is we learned Chatzitza, that there is a din d'oraisa, but then there's many dini d'Rabbanan. And number 3 is Mechitzin. What is the halach l'Moshe Sinai of a Mechitza? Hadamaran. Like we said, that a sukkah is 10 tefachim. That is halach l'Moshe Sinai of Mechitza. But now the Gemara asks the obvious kasha that everyone's been bothered since yesterday. Rav Yehuda. We only got on to this whole story. This whole party began because Rav Yehuda held, as we summarized at the beginning of today's shir, because Rav Yehuda held that the din of a Alma is 5 tefachim. But according to Rameir, Rameir asked the Gemara Michael and Meimar. Rameir had a different source, because Rameir held an Alma is 6 tefachim. So Rameir was very happy to learn out from the Keruvim, Soichachim, that they're schach al kapeim, that they're 10 on top of the 10, which is a third of the 60 tefach tall Mishkan. So according to Rameir, what's halach l'Moshe Sinai that he learns out is a brayso, mechitzin, shiurin, chatzitzin. They're all halach l'Moshe Sinai. According to Rameir, what is that? He doesn't need anything. Answers the Gemara, ki asai hilcha. So what does Rameir learn? Halach l'Moshe Sinai, legud, beloved, v'toifen hakuma. 3 tremendous halachas. We already mentioned all these 3 in the Masechta. Good is good asik, good achis. Good achis goes down, good asik goes up. That was a mistake we made yesterday. If anyone wants a way to remember it, is achis is like the ches. The ches points downward. So good achis is when the walls go down. Good asik is when the walls go up. Lovin is when we fill in gaps of 3 tefachim. And toifen akuma is the bent wall. Anything less than 4 amos. Says the Gemara. Now let's move on to a new topic. And what makes a kosher sukkah? We said if it does not have 3 walls, it's not kosher. Tana Rabbanan, says the Gemara, we're 10 lines to the top. First one line is Tana Rabbanan. You have 2 walls, good kosher walls, 7 tefach walls, full walls. And the third wall could be even a tefach. Tanakama Shita, which we happen to know is Lach L'Moshe Sinai. Which we have to know is Halacha L'Maisa. Rav Shimon Aimer, Shalosh Kilchasan, Rufi Yisafilu Tefach. 3 are good walls, 3 full walls, 3 7 Tefach walls, and the 4th is a Tefach. But my Kamifki, what is this Machlekes Tanakama Rav Shimon? Very, very Yisaidistic, very, very fundamental, says the Gemara. Rabbanan Sabri, this is answer number 1. We're going to have 4 answers. Then we're going to have an addition. But answer number 1 says the Gemara, Rabbanan Sabri. Yesh aim limisayris. Says the Gemara, Yesh aim limisayris. That is 1. We'll explain what these mean in one moment. Misayris from the word that it is, the way that is written. Rav Shimon Savar, in the contrast, it's easier to understand. Yesh aim limikra. the way that it is read. So we're going to have the same word, and we have to know, do we go by the way that we read it, Rav Shimon, the way that it's written, the Chachamim? Now let's explain. Rabbanan Savri Yeshem L'Misayres, the way that it's written, Basukais, Basukais, Basukais. There's 3 times the Torah says Basukais. And as you see the way the Gemara quotes, the first 2 times there's no Vav, it's Chaser, Basukais. The third time is with an additional Vav, Basukais with the Vav. So Basukais with the Vav is a bit more of a plural. So says the Gemara, says the Chachamim, Yishem L'Misayres. It all goes by the way it is written. So how is it written? 2 times without a Vav, 1 time with a Vav. Harekan Araba. Therefore, you have 4. Again, 1 basukah is without a vav, 2nd basukah is without a vav, then a basukah is with a vav, and that's a plural, so that's the 4th. So that's the chacham, and that's 4. Chad, one of them is the gufei. That's to teach halacha itself that you have to have a sukkah with walls. Pashalu tla, so you have 3 left. Shtayin kachas and vasei ilchas avikar lishlishis. So you have a 1 for itself. Then it means you have to have 3 walls, or the 3 mentions of basukais. And the halacha, the Moshe Sinai diminishes vigarate lishlishis and diminishes the 3rd. Ve'okmei atavach, it makes it a tavach. So the chachamim say we go by the way that it is written. It is written 2 times without a vav, 1 time with a vav. Without a vav is 1, without a vav is 2, and with a vav is 2, because that's a plural. Basukah is extra vav is plural. 4 mentions 1 for itself, 3 for the walls, minus 1 as Lach Moshe Sinai diminishes it, is 2 and a little bit. Rav Shimon Savar no Yishem Lemikra. We go by the way that you read it. How do you read it? You read it in the plural. Basukais, it's the same word. Basukais, basukais, basukais. You always read it as if it has that vav, which means each word is written in the plural. If each word is written in the plural, basukais, 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 2, each minimal of plural is 2, it's 6 in total. Harekan sheish. You have 6, says Rav Shimon. Talchad likra ligufei. 1 is for itself again. Pashlu arba. But now, when you get rid of 1, you get rid of 1 plural. So 6 minus 1 plural, 6 minus 2, he's left with 4. Pashlu arba. So what do we have, says Rav Shimon? Shalosh kelchas. And asilchas avigarat l'rvi. It's looking at tavach. Lach Moshe Sinai always subtracts a little bit. And therefore says Rav Shimon, we're down to 3 and a tefach. So the Chachamim go by the way it is written, and therefore it's written chaser chaser malai. 1 plus 2 is 4, minus 1 is 3 and a little bit. It says, excuse me, let me say it again. According to the Chachamim, it's written 1 plus 2 is 4, minus 1 for itself is 3, and the Lach says 2 and a little bit. Rav Shimon says it's written full. Therefore it's 6, minus 1 is 4. 4, the Lach Sinai makes it 3 and a little bit. So that's Teretz number 1. Viba Yisim, we're basically done, says the Gemara Teretz number 2. The Kuli Alma Yishim Lemikra. Really, everyone agrees, you go by the way it's written. If the way it's written, which would mean it has, Yeshem Lemikra, the way it is said, and therefore everyone agrees there's really 6. So what's the machlokes? Mar Savar Succah Bayikra. The Chacham held you need another pasuk for the schach. Again, so you have 6. You get rid of 1. 4 itself is 4. You get rid, and therefore you have 4 left. 1 is for the schach. Now you have 3. Allah Moshe Sinai subtracts 1 is 2 and a little bit. Umar Savar Schach Alei Ba'ikra. Rav Shimon holds you don't need an additional pasuk for the schach. Teretz number 2. Teretz number 3. Vaybesim Dekliyam Yishem LeMisayres. Now the opposite. Everyone agrees it goes by the way that it is written. It goes by the way that it is written, and therefore it is 4. What's like is One says the Chacham say Lach Moshe Sinai goes to subtract. So 4, 1 for itself is 3. Lach Moshe Sinai makes it 2 and a little bit. Rishim says no. Lach Moshe Sinai doesn't subtract. It adds on 3 and a little bit. Teretz number 4. Everyone agrees it subtracts. And everyone agrees that it goes by the way that it is written. So it should be 4. Do we need a pasuk for 1 for itself? Mar Savar. Darshat Chilais, Umar Savar Darshat Chilais. Rav Shimon holds you don't need a pasuk for itself, therefore you have an extra mention of basukais, therefore you can have 4 minus a little bit is 3 and a little bit. That's the 4 answers. Now the Gemara just concludes with the opinion of Ramasna. Ramasna adds on another way of learning Rav Shimon. We're 5 lines from the bottom. Ramasna Amar Taimad Rav Shimon Me'acha V'Succah Tia Letzel Yemam Mechayir V'Lemechsei U'Lemistar Mizer M'Lemater, and to shield you from all the elements. And therefore, says the Gemara, says Ramasna, even though this pasuk is not in the Torah, this is a pasuk from Nach, a pasuk from Yeshayahu, still this is going to be the extra mention. That's what Rav Shimon is going to get 3 and a little bit, not 2 and a little bit. So the quick summary at the end of the daf is we have a machlekes Chachamim and Rav Shimon. How many walls does your sukkah need to have? Is it 2 and a little bit, lach lemaisa of Rav Chamim, or is it 3 and a little bit like Rav Shimon said? The fundamental machlekes is it says in the Torah basukkos 3 times, 2 times the out of vav, 1 time with a vav. Do we go by the way that the Torah wrote it? Says the Chachamim, and therefore there's 3 mentions. 2 without a vav is 2, 1 with an extra vav is an extra 2 is 4, 1 for itself is 3. Lach lemaisa makes 2 and a little bit. Says Rav Shimon, no. We go by the way that you read it. How do you read it? You read it full, as if there's a vav in each and every one. Basukkos, 2 is 6. Get rid of 1 for itself is 4. Therefore, now you have 4. Bounce down a little bit, 3 and a little bit. The other 3 terutzim we're just playing. Do we say that everyone agrees we go by the way it's written? Everyone agrees it goes by the way it's said. Do we say lach lemaisa subtracts? Do we say lach lemaisa adds on? Do we say we need an extra pasuk for the schach? And finally, Ramas adds on an additional pasuk that Rav Shimon can use as a makar from Yeshayahu, and therefore that's how we'll get 3 in a little bit. And tomorrow we're going to discuss where is that little bit going to be precisely. We'll pick it up from